Hey ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Day 9, our final day of group stage action for the G League. This match, a very important one. For IG, they need to win one game in this best of 3 to secure a first place berth in Group B. And if they do that, that means they are seeded directly into the semifinals. They start in the round of 4. They're one match away from those grand finals in Shanghai at the Mercedes-Benz Center, which looks to be just an absolutely, a really historic venue as far as the finals go. Even more epic, I think, in some ways than Benaroya Hall for the International 2 when it comes to the venue. I'm ld. I'm joined here today by Draskyl, and we will be casting IG versus MUFC in just a few.
It's going to be a good game, man, or a good best of 3, I should say. But I think a lot of people going into this match, again, I kind of say IG only has to win one game. And against MUFC, probably the underdogs of the group, I would say, other than BC, I guess. But other than that, I think it's still going to be interesting to watch.
It's actually a pretty interesting match, because in the flip side, we have the next match coming up later today, Tongfu versus Vici Gaming. Vici Gaming's 0-2, and they got 2-0'd in both of those best out of 3s, which means if IG even loses a game here, if MUFC can take one game off of them, they guarantee that Vici Gaming gets knocked out. And so for MUFC, they also really want to win at least one game. Now, obviously, they'd much prefer to win the series. And I think there's two possibilities. If they actually 2-0 IG, which sounds incredibly unlikely, I know, but if they do it, mathematically it is possible for a 3-way tie for first place or a 3-way tie for last place if IG actually 2-0 them and then Vici Gaming 2-0 Tongfu. So there's a lot of possibilities, mathematically speaking, but practically speaking, probably unlikely we'll see those outcomes. For MUFC, they're just going to be looking for that one game. Obviously, you want to take the series, but hey, it's a bit of a long shot. The way that IG played yesterday, on day 1, they looked a little bit weak. I don't know if you got to catch that game against Vici Gaming. They played well, but they made a lot of really sloppy decisions. They fed away a rapier on the lone druid, and then still won the game, but they looked a lot more solid in their second match against Tongfu yesterday.
It felt like, I totally agree with what you were saying in terms of them playing a little bit sloppy. And against the better teams, you really can't get away with play like that. So we'll see how it kind of rolls out for them. But I'm looking at this matchup right now, and I'll give MUFC the benefit of the doubt and say that they could potentially take a game off of IG. But I think it's seriously unlikely that MUFC would end up 2-0ing IG in this particular matchup. But I still want to watch the game. Obviously, there's more Dota going to be coming your guys' way later. And I think Winter is going to be casting the next one, correct?
Yeah, Winter should be joining me for the next one. And that next one, it could be, I mean, it could be kind of a, I guess, depending on what happens in this match, if IG take this and they 2-0 MUFC, then it's a very meaningful match. But if either team wins one game, then I think it's only for seeding at that point. It wouldn't actually affect really the outcome of the group. So as far as who's going to advance and who's going to get knocked out, but yeah, still should be a pretty interesting matchup. As far as these two teams go, how do you think they match up? IG, we've seen them going more in recent days to the Ferrari TA solo mid. Zhou, as far as the Chinese carry players go, gets very little support from his team directly in the lane. What they often do is they offensive tri-lane to try and create a 1v1 matchup for him, and hey, it worked really well yesterday.
They have a really interesting style, but I'd say the one thing that I always watch in IG is how aggressive they're going to be. As a Chinese team, they're insanely aggressive, and that's even to say that the whole scene in general is relatively aggressive as of late. But I think they're going back to their TA picks because that's what the hero is made for. Essentially, if you get any decent of a start in that hero, you can kind of snowball the game. And when you don't need direct support, like you were saying, they end up making these 1v1 matchups. If you can win them, then you don't necessarily need to directly support your carry. You can just leave them alone because there's so much pressure being applied elsewhere on the map that the other team has to react to you. And I think that's a style that IG continues to hone and do very, very well.
And that's what Winter and I were talking about yesterday, is when you look at IG with YYF and Ferrari as their solos, you really want to shut down those two, especially Ferrari, because he's a very momentum-based player. He's often playing heroes that are the same kind of momentum-based heroes. And even when you do it, it almost doesn't even matter, because then Faith is getting his Keeper of the Light, just destroy the enemy team in the offensive tri-lane. Zhou is on an absolute rampage. We saw him playing the Shadow Fiend yesterday, most well-known, I think, as of late for his lone druid. It's a rock and a hard place when you play this team. It just feels like there's no easy solutions.
Their drafting is always really strong. They understand the strengths of the players, Ferrari obviously being a great solo, and they pick around their strong suits. So when you know you have a player who has that kind of an impact in a game, I'd say that's what IG has that most other Chinese teams maybe don't have as much. Obviously, every team has great players, but when you have super high impact heroes like Templar Assassin, you can just change the tide of a game just based on 1 or 2 plays, and that's really what I think IG continues to do. And since, like you said as well, they kind of collapse onto heroes like Keeper of the Light, that's a great hero for alleviating pressure with not a lot of commitment. It's just you can go to a lane, solo push, basically stop MUFC from sending 2, maybe even 3 heroes at it, and then what do you do at that point? Because you have 3 heroes who are committing to maybe pushing a tier 1, and you can't do it. So I think the heroes like that just suit IG perfectly.
And I'm curious how are MUFC going to play this matchup. We saw them try something a little odd on the first day. It really didn't work well against Tong Fu. They went for a lineup in their first game that basically had no stuns. They got the Ohaiyo Tinker. He went for his really patented Dagon. Well, he wanted the Dagon 5 Ethereal Blade. He never really got there, but they didn't really seem to adjust too well playing Tong Fu. But yesterday, they looked a lot more solid. They were picking more stably and I think more balanced lineups. And the thing is, if you're not picking the signature for MUFC before, I guess a month or two ago, was always Ling playing a jungler and very aggressive in the laning phase. They wouldn't necessarily pick that much late game teamfight or 5-man lineups. They'd focus more on dual roaming, on getting those early towers and out map controlling, split pushing. They still emphasize split pushing, but they're not really going for the junglers as much, and it can be one of the best ways to deal with a team that's doing those aggressive tri-lanes, especially if you can get something like the Enchantress. But we'll have to see if MUC go back to that jungle style, because IG is very good at shutting that down in general.
Jungle styles are kind of inherently risky nowadays with the way that people play. When you pick insanely strong lanes and then you have a jungler, say Enigma or Chen Enchantress, if you don't get the early game advantage going for you, then you've basically kind of sacrificed what those heroes are meant for. In some cases, you can use a jungler to maybe aggressively gank mid if you're playing against a team like IG, which I feel is one of the ways that you can try to shut them down because they put so little emphasis on helping their solo lanes. They basically just make it so you let the hero snowball and then you go from there. But if you can shut that down, then I think you have a pretty good chance of stopping IG from just getting to that point where they kind of do their split push strategy like you were saying, and it becomes ridiculously hard to play against. Like, they get to a point where you try to go somewhere to stop them, but they're back, and then somebody else is getting farm, which is another thing that I think IG does exceptionally well, which is just their efficiency on the map is, I think, one of the best in the world.
Yeah, and that's a great point, is they are generally very efficient with their movements. The one player I will say who has not really been in top form, or at least has been taking a lot of heat from his opponents as of late, is Ferrari. Ferrari's been pressured in lane. It's not that he's been playing poorly, but we've seen him go for some tower dives, go for some early trades, which didn't work out in his favor. Something maybe MUFC looks to exploit in this matchup, get Ferrari off to that slow start, but that's not enough against IG. You gotta shut not everybody down, but you can't afford to give up too much to do it. So that's something I'm interested to see, is what do they go for. But I look at ldD International in Group A, and they also favor the aggressive roaming early on, the double jungle. I don't know that MUFC is executing jungling as well as of late as ldD International did, because, I mean, they were like 6 for 6 on Misery's smoke. They weren't even always smoke ganks. They were often just roaming ganks. They were de-warding well, so they could do it without smoke. I don't know that anybody else can be that efficient, but it is a way to kind of break through these teams that in the mid game have that pristine mid to late game decision making and team play. IG, ldD, China. If you want to beat these teams, you got to do something disruptive early. You don't want to let them get into a groove. So that's what I look for from MUFC. If not in the laning stage, then certainly before it gets to the late game, around that 10 to 20 minute mark. That's where MUFC has to really start making an impact.
It's just that old saying is, why wait until like 40 to 45 minutes to make a decision? Because at that point, the decisions that you make are going to be so much more impactful that you could lose a game based on one team fight at 45 minutes in. And that's why teams are putting a lot more emphasis on their early game. If you make a handful of mistakes here and there, it doesn't really put you that far behind. There are exceptions to that, obviously. It depends on what kind of lineup you're playing against. But for the most part, people like ldD, like you were saying, they go for the aggressive strategies. They try to win their lanes and have that really aggressive roaming style to shut down the lanes early. And even if it fails, it's not like in the first 10 minutes of the game, you can really lose a game flat out if you mess up a couple of roams. So I think it's a style that, while it can be a little bit punishing if you fail it, it's the lesser of two evils. Why wait until late game against IG when you know the decision making is going to be pretty much immaculate? And we've seen it before. Games go a really, really long time until one team is absolutely sure they have the advantage, and then they take a fight. So I think that waiting against IG, like you said, is just a gigantic mistake. And
you mentioned immaculate. That was pretty much the marks the Chinese commentators are giving them. I'm not sure if you have the Chinese live stream open, but I think it's a 1 to 10 ranking, or maybe it's 1 to 9. I'm not sure, but they're getting all 9s, 8s, and 9s across the board, primarily 9s of that. MUFC, a very solid team, a lot of 7s in there. And sure, these numbers, they don't actually mean anything necessarily in the game. It's just how the commentators view the players. But when a team is getting high ranks like that, these guys are generally, even ldD China and ldD didn't work any ranks that high, and we saw how well they played in Group A. And you also got a feel for a team like DK in Group A who got knocked out. And then you look at this group and you see even IG doing some really clowny things with the Divine Rapier against Vici Gaming. We see Vici Gaming seeming like they're outmatched. MUFC not looking sharp against Tongfu. You got to feel like if DK was in this group, maybe they would have been able to advance. Maybe somebody else would be going home. But hey, that's how the cookie crumbles.
Unfortunately, Vici didn't get the greatest group in the world. Three very, very well-known teams like MUFC, Tongfu, IG, like you said. And getting in a group with IG, you kind of just have to be like, man, I really wish I wasn't in a group with IG because they pretty much just win everything nowadays. Yeah. It's not even just like they won the International 2. They just win all of it. Like every tournament, just give them the money.
Really everything. It's Ace League, WCG China. The one tournament they didn't win was G1 League. But even before they lost at the LAN finals, they were 14-0 between the group stages and the online playoffs. Then they show up at the LAN finals. It's single elimination. They get 2-0'd by LGD. They get 2-1 by Orange. But that was IG looking like they hadn't really prepared. And the one thing was they were almost gimmicky. They kept on picking the Night Stalker, Bounty Hunter, the super aggressive gank lineups that didn't have a plan B if it didn't work out. But that's not the IG we're seeing in this tournament. We're seeing an IG that picks a more complete lineup, a lineup that has some split push, has some gank, but also some team fight. They've been favoring the YYF Windrunner, the Keeper of the Light, who has support skill, can be a great team fighter in the mid game with that Illuminate. Also getting the items up quickly, like the mech, the 4-staff that really help your team. And even the YYF Magnus, they ran a tri-lane Magnus, and they were just crushing the opposition yesterday. It's not something I say that again. Tri-lane Magnus, like we never see that, but it works with IG.
Well, anytime you have the coordination, that's really all that matters. Things that are unconventional by, I guess, normal standards can work as long as you know why you're doing it. And that's why the draft of IG just continues to be so phenomenal, is they know what they can get away with and what they can't. Like you said, YYF Windrunner, that hero is incredibly strong mid-game. You can make core support items on a great laner. That's like a win-win for early game to mid game. And if you want to try to pressure as hard as you can and win the game within 30 to 35 minutes, and there's not really that many heroes that can accomplish what she can. So it's just knowing exactly what you need to do with the particular heroes that they draft, and they continue to do it. So I think it's more, honestly, a lot of people don't really consider IG for their drafting, but I do. I really think their drafts have been spectacular.
And the other thing is they're just very unpredictable. There's a lot of styles they can run, so it's hard to play against them. And now we see MUFC get introduced. We've talked a lot about IG, but for MUFC, remember, they have to take one game off the series, and then I think no matter what, they at least come away with third place, which, hey, isn't ideal, but you still advance to the playoffs. That's going to be their focus, is winning one game. Of course, as a competitive player, you're going for the series, but if they can take one game, they'll be able to breathe a bit of a sigh of relief here. And we see the new standard for them, xfreedom. He's playing for them in this tournament. They played with HY. They played with Ken before that. That fifth slot for them has not been stable, but they have been practicing with xfreedom a little bit coming into this tournament, so not entirely new to the team.
I think having players kind of looping in through your team, having people join, having a stable four-man roster, it's not so bad, because at least you have your core going. And when somebody joins a team who already has their synergy down and knows what kind of style they want to play, it's not really that difficult for somebody to join and the rest of the team be like, okay, this is what we're going to do. You can kind of go with that flow. It becomes an issue when you have like 2 or 3 people who you constantly have to find replacements for. But if it's just one, I don't think it'll affect them too much. And obviously, like you were saying, they're still a great team. And I think they have a couple of things up their sleeve they could be pulling out to try to beat IG here, because either team, one game, that's really all that matters.
Let's see if Sharky's going to show us that panda that he had yesterday. I think it was a bear. It's a cute little plush doll. He's trying to ply the Chinese fans. No, he's just got it attached to the front of the monitor. Okay. He's trying to win them over, but this is going to be like 95% IG, I'm pretty sure. They are certainly
fanboys. It wouldn't shock me.
Yeah. So as we look at this matchup, what are you viewing as some of the key heroes? I'm not sure how many of the matchups games you've had a chance to watch, but out of the ones you've seen, what are the key heroes coming to this match for you, and some of the key points for these teams, strategically speaking? What's their goal? What heroes are they going to have their eyes on in the draft?
Well, for MUFC, like we were talking about before the game started, which it has actually started, by the way, just so you know.
Okay.
I think not letting it kind of transition to that mid to late game where IG really has their strength is going to be one of your goals. So try to think about the early game heroes. Possibly, if you want to try to go to a jungle strategy, that is one of the better ways to apply early game pressure, as long as your movement's good. But if it's not, then it can totally backfire, and IG can capitalize off that and kind of get into the rhythm, which I think is a mistake a lot of teams make against IG. But as long as they can get some kind of early game advantage, that's going to help them. In that sense, like you were saying, IG has kind of come back to using TA more and more recently. I think giving away away any high-impact heroes like Batrider especially to IG would just be a huge mistake.
And let's see, as the draft has already begun, we're going to miss a little bit of the end of the Chinese pregame because unfortunately the Twitch TV stream, which is not delayed, is laggy, so we had to use the 2-minute delayed Chinese one. Hope you guys aren't too upset, but the good news is the game is not... Don't leave yet, because they might reconnect. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Did they say anything?
I was just about to say, I think everybody just left
Oh,
the game,
they said remake. Okay.
Okay.
Because they had a 10-man disconnect where everybody came back, and that was a little bit
awkward.
Yeah. But they're remaking this one from the looks of things. So, giving away those high-impact heroes. You mentioned the Batrider for YYF. We've seen him play the Mag as well. That's one of the issues with IG. I feel like it's almost got to be more about like what can you get for your own team because there's too many heroes they can use. Like Chuan, you can get rid of the Rubik maybe or the Shadow Demon. We've seen him play those. He's gonna play Sand King. YYF, get rid of the Mag. He'll play the Windrunner or the Batrider. You can ban him out. The Mag's still left in the pool perhaps. So getting rid of those heroes very important, but you can't get rid of them all. So then then the question is what can you get for your own team to kind of really tip the scales in your favor or maximize your chances of success?
I think kind of dwindling Ferrari's hero pool down would be a good thing. There are some heroes in his pool, like Night Stalker, that actually showed it on the Chinese stream. He's a hero who doesn't necessarily even have to win his lane, but his mid-game impact is tremendous. And if you have the proper movement, you can shut down a team pretty much just by yourself, just by being aggressive and forcing movement out of MUFC. So as long as they don't give IG heroes that can kind of split the map, I think they're going to be in pretty good shape. But like you said, you can only ban out 2 of them in the first pick phase. It's just really, really difficult to get rid of every single thing that IG could possibly do because they are one of the more versatile teams that you're going to play against.
And in this matchup, for MUFC, a couple of heroes we've seen the Tinker, the Shadow Fiend, a lot from them. Ohaiyo's been playing the Tinker, but we all know xfreedom can play that pretty well as well. It's a dangerous hero against IG because they're just so good at catching you out of position. There was actually a game yesterday where I think it was IG playing. Who were they playing again? Man, my brain is a sieve at this point. But they were playing against the Tinker, and before he even boots have traveled to a lane, they were already 5-man smoke ganked heading to that lane, knowing he was going to go in there. Or maybe it might have been a split pushing anti-mage. I think that was it versus Tongfu yesterday. And they were able to actually catch him out. He stayed for 1 creep wave, basically, and they caught him. Or he stayed for 1, he went back to buy a TP scroll, and then they caught him when he was coming back to the lane. Like, they were already on their way across the map, 5-man smoke ganked, before he had even really entered the lane. That's just how good this team is at anticipating your movements. So, MUFC, they want to split push. That's generally what they've been doing. But it's very dangerous to do that against IG.
It is pretty dangerous. You can get punished for it pretty hard if you make any mistakes. But I also think that against that kind of a team, you kind of have to take a risk of some sort. If you play super standard safe Dota, IG will probably just beat you because they are their movement on the map and being able to just maximize efficiency on farm of heroes. And we are going to see the Batrider first banned out here by MUFC. So it feels like they're kind of on the same page and taking out the Nyx as well.
There's that Kodal in the pool. There's the Lone Druid. These are some heroes that IG has really been favoring as of late. But the Ferrari TA, that's what they've been first picking, and they're going to go to it again right now. I find it interesting. IG, they actually banned the Tinker. It seems like they just wanted to leave something in the pool, and hey, let's get rid of one of the heroes that MUFC likes to run, but they get the Ferrari TA, and they do it with the first pick.
Well, taking TA at this point and already having the Darkseer and the Tinker banned, if MUFC had a propensity to go for that hero, then I totally understand it, because if you think of IG's style in split push, what is Tinker amazing at stopping? I mean, you really don't have to commit much to it at all. It takes maybe 10, 15 seconds at most to stop an entire wave from pushing into a tower. So they're actually taking the same methodology that I was saying MUFC should take, which is get rid of heroes that split the map. Make it so you are always going to be the first one to make the move and force a reaction from MUFC instead. And I think that's pretty good. Pretty good idea.
They go for the Lone Druid here, getting that tanky carry out. And we've seen IG played against an anti-mage yesterday, and they went mass Midas armor. They went for a Shadow Feed, a TA. They got an early Medallion, a Desolator. I don't remember if there was an Assault Cuirass. I want to say there wasn't. There might have been one other Minus armor here on the field, but when you get that Lone Druid, one of the things that the Asian teams have been turning to as of late is mass Minus armor to burst it down. And the nice thing about that is you get multiple carries, like the TA and maybe the Shadow Fiend as well, and you can't shut them all down, or at least that's the way IG tries to play. Also, the Keeper of the Light is in the pool. That's something they're going to have their eyes on here.
I feel like taking Lone Druid plus another kind of a semi-carry would be a pretty good idea by MUFC. I feel as though Templar Assassin isn't great against Lone Druid, you kind of need that second physical damage dealer to really be able to burn a Lone Druid, even during the mid game, because of how much durability that he has and mass armor, like you were saying. And Leshrac is also a pretty good countermeasure. Before the BKB comes out, you have Edict and you have Pulse Nova. So engaging as a Templar Assassin against those two heroes alone is going to be pretty awkward, to say the least. And one lucky rune, that can pretty much be all she wrote for Ferrari's TA. But I suppose that's kind of just mid-game theory crafting. We haven't even seen the rest of the draft yet. I just think that if they go for a double carry strategy, which I don't know is that common anymore in Chinese Dota, I think it would work pretty well, because that kind of makes it so wherever IG wants to split roam, somebody else is going to be getting farm. So it's going to be, I think, something they might be trying to go for here.
With IG's one of the teams that's more likely to do it. Wow, they go for the Enigma and the Lifestealer. This is something different from IG, something we haven't really seen as much of them. We haven't seen Enigma or Lifestealer from this team at all. Very surprising on paper, but you look at this lineup, and they have heroes that can deal with the Lone Druid, and you're up against a lot of single-target focusing type carries, the Lifestealer, the TA. Shadow Demon is a must. Also, that Demonic Purge, essential versus Lifestealer. And it looks like it'll be Faith handling that Enigma. I guess Zhou on the Lifestealer. I'm just wondering how they're going to lane this, because IG, they've been doing a lot of aggressive tri-lanes, that 1-1-3. They could do it with the Lifestealer. Maybe Enigma will actually be in the lane and not necessarily in the jungle, but it does remain an open question at this point in the draft.
I'm really intrigued by IG's draft so far. I mean, I was thinking of a couple of heroes in my head, but I can promise you that those two in conjunction were not the two that I was thinking of. So
yeah, me neither.
I mean, Shadow Demon is an amazing counter pick to Templar Assassin. Anytime you have high focus, the nice thing about the hero is you can stand so far back in fights, and you can basically just disrupt whoever's being focused, especially during things like Black Hole. If the Enigma doesn't have his BKB up relatively soon, it can be extremely annoying. The one thing is Lifestealer against Lone Druid. That matchup is actually not so good for the Lifestealer either, but I think between the two, if you ever infest in a Templar Assassin, that kind of a burst initiation can take down pretty much anyone, and I think they are going for more mid-game dominance once again.
Very interesting. IG pulling something out of the hat that's a little bit different, but hey, it's the double carries again with the Lifestealer, the TA. This is something IG has been favoring, something Tongfu was doing a lot of coming into the tournament, and when you have a very deep lineup, it's a good way to ensure that somebody's getting big. I'm really interested to see what are they going to do with the rest of the bans here. It looks like banning out the Panda for MUFC, and this has become a very important trend. And I mean, we've seen it before, but it's really been hammered home as of late. The team that has the Lone Druid just cannot be allowed to get the Panda as well. You don't want those two to be able to group up together. And if you're not going to take the Panda for yourself, which IG choose not to, you'd better be banning it out. We see that now.
I think it's a little bit strange that they decided to ban it, but I guess seeing their heroes, they already have their mid pretty much solidified. They could potentially lane the Enigma if they wanted to. That's one option they do have. Their lanes are relatively open, I would say, with the Lifestealer and the Enigma still in the pool. We haven't seen the other supports yet coming out for IG, so MUFC is still kind of in the situation where they're not totally on the same page as IG in terms of what their draft's going to end up being, but Beastmaster taken out by IG as well. These feel like heroes that should potentially be IG's picks, especially against heroes like Lone Druid. Beastmaster and Panda are amazing counters to Lone Druid. You can roar the bear, you can put it up in the air with a Cyclone. I mean, you can't ask for more than that, but it seems like IG is just not that concerned, and I'll be honest, anytime you underestimate a Lone Druid, it can be a mistake.
Yeah, we'll see. MUFC, it's a hero they do like to run as one of their preferred carries, and we'll have to see. I'm just curious to see really what the one reason I bring up a solo Enigma is that LGD did it. They put Enigma solo mid. They went for kind of a mid-game timing group up, and you know, for them it was more of a push strategy, but it looks like with IG, it's more of just a ganking lineup, sort of a map control lineup. We're not really seeing that big group up and push style just yet. And what do they do for these last few picks? The one thing that I find very odd is they could have taken Keeper of the Light, but they opt not to, and the Lifestealer was very unlikely to be banned. I don't think they've been showing this at all, unless they've been doing it in scrims, but they just clearly wanted something different this game, so they don't even bother with him, even though it's been working out great, and instead they go for the Lina, and hey, this could be a tri-lane, Lifestealer Lina +1. It's a very potent combo, and that Open Woods is great for setting up a Light Strike array.
It's a really powerful combination indeed. If they are going to go with a full tri-lane, though, there is a possibility that Enigma could still be jungling here. He jungles incredibly fast. The Lifestealer would essentially have free farm unless MUFC wants to send a tri-lane versus a dual lane plus jungler of IG. And I feel like even that can be a bit of a risk. If you look at the heroes that they don't have any great tri-laning heroes. Lone Druid typically seen as a solo safe lane. And then you have heroes like Shadow Demon and Leshrac who, while pretty good in lane, they don't offer that much burst damage. Shadow Demon needs a couple of levels before he can get Soul Catcher and Disruption up to a point where it's a real threat. And against a Lifestealer who has the magic immunity, even as a melee, he's not going to suffer that much. So we could potentially still be seeing a dual lane with a jungler here from IG.
And one thing I want to mention, MUFC, there's a high chance they'll do a dual lane mid with the Shadow Demon plus Leshrac. That's something that really can shut down the TA between the Shadow Poison, the Edict, and just the reliable setup stun. And that's what teams have been doing as of late to try and beat IG, is dual laning Ferrari or roam ganking him aggressively. Something that MUFC could look to do, in which case Ohaiyo would be playing that Leshrac, and it would be more of a farming carry Leshrac. I don't want to say a bygone relic, but something that has faded out of popularity a bit, but MUFC may be looking to bring it back here.
It is a possibility. Tanking up, especially against a team like IG, could be very good, but it's going to be more about armor than mass HP, because against the Lifestealer, the more health you have, the easier it is for the Lifestealer to sustain and fights. But that's why Lone Druid's also so great. Having that ridiculous base armor stops Feats from doing its maximum damage output. But yeah, MUFC is going to go with the Chen, and I kind of figured they might do something like this. It's a little bit riskier because Chen does fall off if he's unable to accomplish getting early game towers, or at the very least, shutting down the carry of mid, which would be Templar Assassin in this case. And there's IG's last pick, and it's going to be Sand King. So yeah, it looks like we are going to be seeing that tri-lane.
This is a pretty scary push from MUFC, especially if it's a farming Leshrac and Lone Druid plus Chen. They're going to have a nice group up. We'll have to see, though. Against that offensive tri-lane, Chen can be a liability, especially compared to other junglers like an Enchantress. IG, very good at finding those pickoffs early on the lane. Even if you're not killing the Chen, it means that he's not helping that lane, so positioning is going to be essential for the Shadow Demon if he's in that bottom lane. And I mean, you almost, I wonder if you can even do that dual lane mid anymore. You're almost forced, if it's an aggressive tri-lane, to just at least have the Shadow Demon down there. And you know, let's see. Maybe it'll just be a solo mid Leshrac. He does okay against TA. I wouldn't say he can really shut her down 1v1, but yeah, let's see. My main concern for MUFC is the Chen right now. I feel like he's going to have a very hard time if he goes defensive jungle.
He is going to have a bit of a hard time, for sure. The thing about IG's lineup, though, is picking Sand King in the situation, I feel like if all they wanted to do was have a defensive stunner, I think Earthshaker probably would have done his job better, and MUFC decides to go with a Weaver. So both teams, IG and MUFC, both running the double carry strategy. I think Weaver is a really risky pick, honestly, against IG's lineup, because mobility is wonderful against IG's team, because if you can dodge the stun follow-up, you'll be in good shape. Shukuchi stops the open wounds from being that annoying, but if you do get caught, you're pretty much guaranteed to be dead, especially once Faith hits level 6 and gets his Laguna Blade out. So I think Weaver can work pretty well in this game if you manage to get your Radiance up, which I'm not sure if he's going to go for Radiance Rush or not. Being able to sustain in team fights with a Lone Druid with the mobility of Weaver, I think they're going to be actually trying to draw this out in team fights.
Yeah, they've got the Chen heal if he can get the levels up. I feel there's just, this is going to be who's playing this Weaver. It looks like xfreedom is, in which case it's going to be that 3-position Weaver. It's going to be, or at least 2-position. It's going to be more of a utility Weaver. That's generally how he plays the heroes. So I don't think we'll be seeing the Radiance Rush. If it was Sharky playing it, Sharky generally prefers, you know, that Lincoln Sphere Radiance, just getting, you're more of the late game build. But with Freedom, it's more of a utility build. So introducing MUFC, we have Freedom playing the Weaver, headed to the off lane. Looks like he'll be by himself for the moment. Ohaiyo going mid as the Leshrac. Will he have backup? I guess not. Shadow Demon's heading bottom. Lane is going to be playing that Chen. Early smoke picked up for him, saving money for the sentries in case they have to deward, which if IG go aggressive, they will have to. We have Sharky on the safe lane Lone Druid, and Net playing the Shadow Demon, defensive jungle. Interesting for IG, they have a pretty strong aggressive tri-lane, despite it having 2 melee heroes, but they're not going to go aggressive, it looks like.
This is a little bit strange. If MUFC was anticipating the aggressive tri-lane, or defensive tri-lane, excuse me, of IG, then sending Weaver up there solo is pretty much one of the best things that you can do, because even between these heroes, landing a Light Strike array or getting in range for a 350 range Burrow Strike is going to be really difficult against Weaver. So with that in mind, I think it's a pretty good choice, but if IG decides to ignore it and just switch lanes, which it looks like they are actually doing right now, unless they're just kind of sitting around here waiting for the first rune, then it could be working out for IG. But it's a really interesting kind of a outcome so far, because I thought Lone Druid would just be soloing this lane, and MUFC might just have a roaming Shadow Demon.
Let's see. Hey, if he's 1v1 or if the lane's abandoned with it, which it looks like. Wait a second. I gotta point this out on IG. We haven't introduced them yet, but zhou is playing the Enigma. Zhou is their one position player. He almost always plays those carries, like the Shadow Fiend, the Lone Druid. He's playing Enigma this game. Something very unusual. Ferrari on the TA, that's pretty standard. Faith on the Lina. We have Chuan on the Sand King. Last but not least, YYF on the Lifestealer. He is generally their tri-lane farmer, and, you know, normally zhou's getting one of those solo lanes, but still, if anyone plays Enigma on this team, it's always been Faith. It hasn't been zhou. Very interesting and unexpected for me.
I saw that, and I was thinking of it in my head, and until you said it out loud, I just didn't really think too much of it. But yeah, that is a little bit strange, to say the least. And we're going to have a quick pause, but MUFC decides to send Leshrac and Shadow Demon both middle against Ferrari, and this is what I was saying. If you can stop him from getting an early start, TA is so based on her early game. If she doesn't get her quick phase boots, obviously you're going to want something like a blink. Got some people disconnecting, not sure what the issue is, but hopefully it's all going to be resolved.
Don't leave yet unless we see everyone leave, because
I'm going to stay, because I don't want to make the mistake of being that guy who leaves the game, and it would be bad. But either way, I do like the fact that MUFC decided to send the Shadow Demon mid, even if it gets the Leshrac a couple of levels and he doesn't feel any pressure. That's enough, because if you get a rank into Split Earth, a couple of ranks into Edict, you can pressure Ferrari enough to not need help anymore, and then the Shadow Demon can go elsewhere. So I think it's a pretty good choice here by MUFC.
I want to point out in the top lane, this is not going to be fun for the Weaver. Like you said, it's going to be hard to find that first stun, but if they find the first stun, he's dead, because they have Observer Wards in the lane. There are sentries already up on Faith. In fact, he's already dropped one. I can't easily see where it is on the map right now. Oh, it's bottom. It looks like they were just making sure they'd have any vision of smoke ganks coming towards mid, and this is what you have to do against MUFC, because their jungling play, generally they're very aggressive. You know, Extinct for Arns, the other big Malaysian team, the other top SEA team, he's more of a defensive jungler. He'll usually go for, you know, like the level 5-6 group up and push, but Ling, normally very early roaming and very aggressive jungle, so this is something that is very smart, and I think you really need to do, especially when there's already two heroes mid. If that Chen comes in with a decent creep and you don't see it, Ferrari's giving up first blood, almost guaranteed.
Yeah, the Disruption Split Earth combo is dangerous enough, but yeah, to Chen into the mix and things would be looking pretty grim. And I do like the fact that they placed it right away, because usually around the 3.5 minute mark is when you could potentially get ganked, and with the kind of a lineup that MUFC has, especially towards mid, it would be relatively easy for Ferrari to fall here. So taking the extra defensive measure, and that kind of makes me think, if IG knew that there was going to be this kind of aggression coming out, why are they okay with sending Ferrari in this situation? Because typically they kind of try to do what they can to ensure that he gets his mid game to then open space for the carries. But in this case, I guess YYF's going to have all the room in the world. The Weaver isn't even in top lane. He got a double damage, and he's using it to kill the small camp in the jungle right now. So,
yeah, xfreedom. The thing is, Weaver, it's not really the best hero to just stay here. Maybe we'll even see some mid-pull attempts. They don't have a Rubik on their team, so they can't do that really obnoxious, you know, lift up on the hill and then pull the big camp easily. But maybe he'll double jungle with the Chen, and Shadow Demon will just be camped out mid. I'm not sure, but that off-lane Weaver, especially if he's not there at the early levels, and then Chuan hits, say, level 3 and has his boots, then it gets even tougher for him to enter the lane. So I'm not sure where Freedom's going to go, but that's something I have my eye on. And on the side of IG, Ferrari could easily be shut down, give up that first blood, but you do have a jungle Enigma as your trade, and I don't know that it's going to be easy for MUFC to breach that high ground into the enemy jungle. And if you do, you got to be worried about the Sand King or the Lina showing up. Speaking of that, Faith has a smoke, and this middle lane, Leshrac Shadow Demon, if they're going aggressive on the TA, that smoke gank could completely turn fights around.
Smoke ganking is something that MUFC is going to basically have to do. And the same with IG, basically. If IG's early game goes well for them, then MUFC, I think, is going to have an infinitely harder time coming back than if MUFC's early game goes well and IG's goes poorly. I still feel like IG has a lot to fall back on. But on the flip side, they're going to have a free-farming Lone Druid for MUFC in this bottom lane, and they're basically sacking top, which is pretty much the only choice that you could possibly make in this situation. xfreedom is not going to get anything done, even if he's there. And they're doing a really good job at denying the wave, so YYF's just going to free farm on his tower. But this is a trade that I think they're going to be okay with, because of the fact that Ferrari's not going to get anything done. If Ferrari and YYF were getting farm, I would say this could be a problem. But that's not the case. It's trading one hero farming for one hero farming.
Yeah, YYF's not getting anything accomplished. The support's doing a lot of pulling early on, and already the rotation into the enemy jungle by xfreedom. He's just going to look to disrupt this Enigma a little bit. Unfortunately, Weaver's not really the best hero for this. He's decent, but those Sakuchis You even use 4 or 5 of them, you're pretty much out of mana, and he doesn't have any clarity potions. Oh, he's gonna go for a pull. Okay, interesting, but look at the 2 tower shots. Oh my god, xfreedom underestimating the amount of damage he was gonna take there. A single stun would spell doom, and IG, they smell blood in the water. I don't know if they're gonna kill him, but they're gonna look to disrupt mid.
He's pulling it.
Oh, freedom.
He's pulling it to the Ancients or something like that?
Oh, he's gonna have to go now. He will, but he loses the pull. A lot of wasted time for him.
That is unfortunate, but what would that time really have accomplished anyway? I mean, if he was sitting in the lane, then they have a lane ward here from IG, so they would have seen him, and he would have been able to basically just force him out at the very least. I doubt he would have gotten experience otherwise, but kind of interesting that he took that many tower shots. I don't even think you have to get that close to pull the creeps during daytime, but either way, he did buy 2 salves instead of 1, so his regen's going to be fine.
He did, but he's already chewed through everything. He bought a lot of extra regen, and then he's used it all up, and what has he actually gotten off of it? Not even a full level. That's a point of concern. And IG, here's that early smoke from them. They're going to look to rotate. Where do they go with this? Looks like they're going to head towards mid, at least for now. Can they set up this kill? There's no boots on either support. Oh, mid lane, they're going in. This is that counter gank with the smoke that we discussed. Ferrari taking some good damage here, but they're not able to bring him down. No, they're actually heading all the way bottom towards the lone druid, but I don't think they can actually kill him with just these 2.
Only level 1 Malefice on the Enigma as well. If they were going to try to gank him, he really wants that to be level 2 because level 1 is only 1 stun. It might not be enough, but we'll see. Oh,
Zhou's looking at... Oh, he's angling for it. The Malefice is there. It's only the 1. There you go. The Burrow Strike to follow up the Light Strike Array, and they are going to be able to kill him. Zhou rotates down to the lane after hitting level 2, and with 3 heroes, first blood coming from IG. You wanted a good start for MUFC. Well, they're not getting it. Weaver's chewed through all his regen. He's getting a lot of levels now, but also the first blood on that lone druid who was free farming.
Now that death really, really hurts. You don't want your lone druid to be shut down, especially in that fashion. If IG had come all the way bottom and that gank didn't work, which the Sand King didn't have boots for it, but unfortunately he still ended up getting caught out, even though lone druid's 15 base move speed faster, and zhou was like the max range Malefice. He converted creeps before he actually used a stun. I thought he was going to get away because of that, but managed to catch him out. So very well done by IG, knowing their limits. And I mean, that's going to help a lot because at some point, if that keeps happening, then MUFC is going to have to do something or dedicate one person to helping the lone druid, and that can't really happen in their game plan. They're trying to keep Ferrari down, but he still managed to reach level 4.
The good news is, because they did that, Freedom's getting a lot more now. He's up to level 4, and he was level 1 like 2 minutes ago. He came top right as a huge wave arrived, and Lifestealer can't do anything to zone him out of the lane. He'll free farm, but the Weaver's going to get a lot of levels and a decent amount of farm, and they're going on him again. But
I think he's going to get away this time.
Yeah, he's a little too fast for that Sand King.
Oh, I love that choice, especially Lone Druid. He got a point into Rabid, which is pretty unorthodox at this point in the game, but it gives him that extra move speed. It doesn't have a cast time, so he's able to run away from the smoke ganks just a little bit faster, and that could be all the difference. But Ferrari's getting engaged on mid as well.
And tanking that Edict, but Ohio is actually forced to run away. And in comes the Burrow Strike. Net, no disruption, already used it, and there you go. Ferrari turns it around. Wow. IG always prepared with those early TP scrolls when they put Ferrari mid, and sure, they leave him on an island, but it's not really an island. They look to counter gank. The Bears take a lot of damage bottom. Malefice up. This will be a big loss if it falls, and it's the 2 points to Malefice. Now the Light Strike Array. God damn, I'm going to get those 2 confused all game long. And they get the bear kill, so things really looking good for IG.
Bear. That was the second bear. He's got a full minute without being able to resummon. That hurts so much, and I think IG is actually going to take this time to push into the tier 1, and there is pretty much no defense being put up by MUFC just yet.
They're so good with these early smoke ganks and, you know, running the supports that maybe aren't the best in the lane like the Sand King, but they just go for kills anyway, and they're going for more bottom. On to Sharky. Where's that? Oh, there's the Malefice. Now the Light Strike Array, it is going to miss. Doesn't even matter. Lone Druid is just getting absolutely destroyed, and this is where you want that Shadow Demon there. This is the weakness of that Chen. Maybe he can set up ganks, but he's not going to be able to defend you in the lane, and unfortunately, Lone Druid dropping this many times. YYF free farming. And now Ferrari starting to catch up a little bit. He's already up to level 5. He's got the core item. Sure, not farming great, but with the kill mid, he's doing pretty well in spite of the dual lane. And the whole point of that dual lane is to shut him down, and they really haven't done it.
Well, this is what I was talking about earlier. The fact that IG made the first move, they got the kill on the lone druid bottom of MUFC, and then the supports started coming down. We can see Shadow Demon's basically sitting in the lane now. So what can they really do against Ferrari? His space is completely open by the supports of IG. Top, YYF's not really struggling that much. He had a lane of free farm before xfreedom had any chance of staying in the lane. So it's not like he's suffering too much himself. He can do this 1v1 and not really suffer for it, where the rest of MUFC basically has to react to what IG wants to do now. And this is a position that you really can't be in, because if they let that lone druid die again, then that first tier tower could very well be dropping.
And he's just got to be so careful now. He's got the early triangle boots up. That's it, though. And Zhou also doing a great job of denying his farm at this point, with the Soul Ring being out, spamming the demonic conversions, and just limiting the amount of farm he can get. Whereas the Lifestealer, the opposing safe lane, already the phase boots coming out. This is the IG Lifestealer. Sometimes we see the more farming oriented one with the early Midas. YYF could go for that, but they want him to be involved in these fights in the mid game. Gets the quick phase boots, and with the amount of stuns they have, he's going to be getting a lot of auto attacks off in these fights.
A phase boot is always a great choice if you're going to be maxing rage first, and that seems to be basically his choice.
Oh no, this is not where you want to be. It's every time they're roaming, they're just picking up these easy kills. Every time they're finding them.
I really haven't felt the Chen's presence too much either, and we haven't talked about him much. He does have 1,500 gold saved up right now. I'm assuming he's probably just going to be going for the early mech, but even then, I mean, is it really worth picking a Chen if you're just going to sit in the jungle and farm when you're basically just sacking 2 other lanes for it? I'm really not so sure.
It seems like IG really pulled a fast one on MUFC with the way they started the lanes. It looked like they weren't going to put any pressure on the lone druid, so they bait MUFC into this false sense of security. Then they smoke gank across the map. He's thinking they're just pulling. They don't have vision up on the tops of the map, so he couldn't see the pulls. That's just what you assume when those supports have already shown themselves in the lane. And so the Chen thought he could sit back and farm. They're trading farm. They're getting free farm on a lone druid for a Lifestealer, which normally is a good trade, especially if Ferrari's being shut down, but that wasn't really the case. The plan, it seems, all along for IG, they did start with the smoke, was we're going to go and set up some ganks all over the map. We're not going to sit in the lane and pull. And I guess to some extent MUFC should have expected this, because Sand King Lina, not really the best supports to just sit in the lane and do a bunch of pulling. They're much more effective with those ganks, and still MUFC, like you said, the Chen's presence hasn't been felt, but I really go back to the way the lane started, and I think MUFC just weren't expecting it. They were fooled by seeing 3 heroes top to begin with and have not made the proper adjustments.
Well, the thing is, once you see that gank happen once, you have to assume it's going to happen again. If IG knows they can get a kill, they're going to go for it more than once. Especially, I love the fact that they took the Enigma, knowing that they would need an opening stun for the smoke gank to be successful, because Sand King's initiation range isn't that great. So you have to kind of have an opener for him to land a stun, and you have the Lina to follow up. They had that in mind when they picked the hero. I mean, that's just kind of the drafting style that they have, and that's why I think it's really brilliant the way that they've been playing this out. But I totally agree. The reaction from MUFC just hasn't been existent at all. They've sent some supports to a lane to help the lone druid farming, but the Shadow Demon is pretty much just sitting down here and doing absolutely nothing. He's just sitting in the lane to make sure that this lone druid doesn't die again, and that's not really the kind of play you can do against IG, because they're going to find other openings.
Yeah, and even if those openings are just pulling and farming, which is what we're seeing right now, you really need to deward the lane. You need to make sure he's got vision, maybe an observer and a sentry, and then go do some pulls, roam on your own with the Chen. Just sitting back here, like you said, it's not accomplishing anything. And everything from IG is being very effective. They're very efficient with this, and they're going to look for another gank towards the middle lane. Sand King now has those boots and the level 3 stun. And Ohaiyo just actually behind when it comes to farm on that TA. It looks like primarily because of the kills. And sentry wards and observers are here trying to protect him a little bit, but this is not good. If they got a kill on Leshrac, that would officially be every single hero except for the Weaver being totally shut down. And Weaver already sort of shut himself down with the way that top lane started, taking 3 tower shots, using up 2 salves in the first 2 minutes.
He didn't really have a choice. He's trying to be creative with finding some experience, and I don't really fault him for doing it. It's just, what else really could he accomplished? He could have sat in the jungle with a Chen, I guess, and it probably would have accomplished about the same that he's been able to do top. But he's been bottle crowing. He's spamming Shikuchi for CS. He's got 4 points into his Shikuchi now, so he's a little bit more mobile. Oh, needs to be careful, though.
Oh no, this is not good. This is very bad. And he'll drop here. Wow. That was really... I almost want to say just unlucky. Like, the second a Shikuchi wears off, that's when they show up. But hey, they were in the right place at the right time. And that's every single farmer on this team that's died at least once, aside from Ohaiyo. But Ohio's he's almost died in the sense that he's just been sitting back in the tower, terrified of ganks even when they're not coming.
Zhou might be in some trouble here. Bottom, he does manage to get the tower. And now he's trying to run away from the Shadow Demon and Lone Druid, and it's... Oh, there's the Lone Druid bear. I was going to say, did he lose his bear again? Looks like it just got resummoned, and Lifestealer also gets a kill mid.
Yeah, cue the Benny Hill music. Chuan is going to be able to go Invis. That does remove the bugs from the Swarm, and that means Chuan should be okay. Early Medallion out on xfreedom. This is that utility build we talked about. Will be nice against these heroes if he can actually auto-attack. If anybody can, then who's going to be able to? That's the question. Nice defensive disruption. Split Earth on 2. What a huge Split Earth by Ohaiyo. Maybe turning this fight around. Blocked in to a bad position, and then the Chen picked off before this really got started. Not able to keep his Lone Druid alive. Now YYF just chopping away, slapping away, and all these heroes dropping quickly. Net on the back foot, trying to retreat out of here. The Chen Hand of God comes after the respawn. What do you know? You dual lane Ferrari, and he's getting a triple kill at 12 minutes. This was not part of the game plan.
Definitely not. YYF's going to find xfreedom here in the bottom, but I don't think he's going to be able to do anything about it. I like the Medallion pickup by the Weaver. It's really good for early game. At that point, or at this point in the game, it's 12 minutes in. 6 armor reduction, that's pretty massive. The problem lies in the fact that Ferrari is now level 10, so he has max meld, he has max refraction, and the dual lane, it really didn't do much, honestly. When you have a dual lane mid, and you have a defensive jungler, and then a really strong laner versus an Enigma solo in your safe lane for MUFC, you have to accomplish something from those lanes, and they really didn't get anything. They didn't even apply pressure to the tower. The bottom tier tower has lost 29 HP in 12 minutes when you have a Lone Druid and a Chen down there.
Meanwhile, the Enigma got the enemy bottom tower. zhou got that mostly by himself. They did set up some kills earlier, but they weren't really pushing after those kills. And now we already see the mech coming out on him, the blink on Ferrari. This is going to fuel the pushes, and once those towers fall, that creates a lot of space for Ferrari to do the dirty work with these ganks.
Oh man,
this is tough.
Everything has just gone totally south.
What do you
see really fast?
What do you do if you're MUFC now? There's no real one hero who can just turn the game around because to some extent they've all been shut down. Even the Chen's mech isn't out yet. He's trying to finish it, but Enigma's already had his. I'm scratching my head here. I'm not sure. They've got some strong late game, but this lineup is really built around a defensive laning and then that mid game timey push, and we're just not seeing it. Net's getting picked off mid, and IG are just finding so many easy kills. We need to send back here from Ling. Not actually sending back. He's just sort of chilling at the tower, watching his team die, microing the creeps, it looks like. And now the Burrow straight in on xfreedom, Epicenter being channeled, he'll melt. And the creeps getting massacred in the wake of this death. And now Ling being chased down. What's going on with Ling? He's trying to run away, but it's too late. 4 heroes dead. Didn't send anyone back during that fight. I guess felt there was no chance they'd get away anyway. And it's 13-2. This is quickly turning into a stomp.
You know what the surprising part about all this is I haven't really seen the Enigma at too many fights. He's been involved in more ganks than really team fights. There was one in MUFC's Woods, and that's about it. He's basically just pushing for his team, while 4 heroes of IG just roam all over MUFC, and it's successful every single time. And, I mean, Enigma has a mech done, Ferrari's got his blink. The core items of IG are already finished. And as I was talking about, and as you had said as well at the beginning of the cast, the kind of style they have to play against IG is to get something and take it from them in the early game. And they had a lineup that had the potential to do that, but the execution of IG was just a little bit too strong. The Lone Druid not expecting those ganks. The support's coming all the way from top. And oh man,
Ferrari, you artisan. There's the disruption, and now the Soul Catcher. Can they turn this one around? It would be a big kill. Little miscommunication there. Ohaiyo running away, now coming back in, and they pick it up. That was a very important kill, and Ferrari, sometimes a little over-aggressive. He will drop there, but speaking of core items, YYF up to an armlet, 7k net worth, 15 minutes in. They get 1 kill in Ferrari, but this IG lineup is a dual-core lineup, and you can almost say even Enigma's going to be one of those core heroes later on with the mech, and now another 1800 gold. It's a zhou Enigma, so it makes sense we're seeing a little bit more of a focus on farming and pushing from him.
I kind of, because he's able to get a lot of core items. If he ever has to come to a team fight, which at this point I don't really think he does, he feels pretty confident in just sitting there and farming. He took the top tier 1, he took the bottom tier 1, and IG doesn't really have that big of an emphasis on pushing this game. They've left him to do all of it by himself, and it's worked out quite well for them so far. So I guess don't fix what isn't broken, and this roaming squad of Chuan and Faith has just been spectacular the entire game. If I had to say, I know they always do the MVP between games. I'd say these two are definitely going to be my suggestions, just because of the fact that their roaming alone basically just tore MUFC apart.
They've made it so easy. They've created so much space for everyone. The Enigma, and even when the ganks were going bottom, sure, you're creating space for the Enigma there, but you're also creating space for your Lifestealer, because there's not going to be any smoke ganks heading his way. You're creating space for Ferrari mid, because the Shadow Demon's rotating down there. So that dual roam, you go to one side of the map, and suddenly it just opens up the entire space all over the map for everybody to farm and get levels. And Gem already out on Chuan. This map control. I know Winter, it's something he always harps on, is he loves to see the really, really early gems from teams, and this is earlier than even what we've been seeing from most of the Asian teams, and they always go for the early gem. 16 minutes in, Sankey level 8, no Blink Dagger for him yet, he just wants this gem right away.
Well, I mean, why not if you're at this point? It's 3-13, you have total map control, you've taken all the tier 1s. They actually took mid-tier 1 after Roshan, which is a little bit, I guess, different than normal, but to say the very least, I don't think it matters too much, and I think the IG is not going to wait any longer and just go ahead and force the issue.
Enigma, what is he going for? It looks like that Blink Dagger's coming out now. Yeah, Blink Dagger on Zhou. They're going to have every single core item except for the Blink on Chuan, but really, do they need it? Well, they have so many other heroes who can go in first. The answer is probably not. YYF's going to have a Yasha as well. Going for that Manta style. Really nice item to have against the Lone Druid. This is tough. They're such... And the thing is, what they really want to do right now is split push with the Weaver and the Lone Druid, but those heroes just don't really have the items to push that quickly. Jump in from Ferrari, but not really going to find an opening there.
It looks like they were all TPing to stop this Lone Druid from pushing into the bottom lane, but now they're a little bit overextended.
They want YYF. He already used the Infest, but he does have a little too much HP. Now the heal coming out, and it looks like Lone Druid trying to rotate quickly towards the fight, but who are they actually going to pick off? The Aegis drops on Ferrari. Will they go back in for round 2? Fate's thinking about it. YYF's dropping very low here, but maybe he'll go in. Ferrari's going to get picked off. A little bit of a miscommunication, overextension for him. Meanwhile, on the other side of play, Weaver's dropping. Now, on to Sharky, who's suddenly surrounded by 4 heroes. The mech keeping everybody healthy, and now dodging one stun, but he needs to dodge more. Zhou on the way out. He's still got a black hole, and now Sharky being focused down and unable to escape. Black hole catches Ohaiyo. They got Ferrari, but is it enough? It doesn't feel like it right now. Infest into some more damage. There's your Burrow Strike. Ling's going to melt to this. Zhou running in, running away, and now the Chen drops. They're all just getting picked apart. And that was a bad engage from IG. That was an engage that, frankly, was very sloppy. We saw Ferrari just getting surrounded, picked off, the team thinking about going back in, they're running away, and they still come out with 4 kills.
That was really nice movement out of Zhou, especially. He actually looped all the way around, went into the big creep camp, and blinked forward to Black Hole. He waited for the Shrek stun to be used, he waited for the nets to come out from the Troll Warlords, and then he finally made his move. So it was really, really brilliantly executed by him, and that's pretty much what allowed them to turn it around on the back of course, YYF having absolutely insane farm for this point in the game. And that's really the issue is, that fight, like you said, pretty sloppy by IG. The engagement, miscommunication, not backing when they already saw that Chuan and +1 had already TP'd to the bottom tier 2 to stop the push from Lone Druid. That fight should probably have not happened, but because of the individual play right there, they managed to pull it out, and of course the massive amount of farm that they all have.
And Chuan's going to have the blink soon. He's also up to level 11, and MUFC, sure, they've got Hand of God. Oh, wow, look at this. Ohio's actually been forced to go for a Ghost Scepter, which, against TA, against Lifestealer, a great item. The problem is, there's a Laguna Blade in this game. There's an Epicenter. There's a lot of magical damage. This is normally not an item you go for, but he's just so desperate to get something out, and it really tells the story of this game to see a Ghost Scepter from your farming Leshrac 19 minutes in.
I'm not really sure that he had a choice in the matter. If YYF goes on him in 1 open wounds, he's pretty much dead to rights. There's nothing he can do. So
right.
It's either die to the Nakes or die to magic damage. It's pretty much pick your poison here with the IG's lineup, and because of the fact that somehow, even in a situation where you felt like 1 or 2 of the heroes could potentially be shut down pretty hard, they all have farm. And that's just IG again. Their supports just played so well during the early game, creating space for the heroes that needed it the most, especially Ferrari. When I saw the dual lane mid, Shadow Demon Leshrac against Templar Assassin, I mean, Shadow Demon is actually quite good against TA by himself. But when you add another hero into the mix, it becomes pretty difficult to deal with.
xfreedom, they go on him, and now Faith looking for that Light Strike rate. Can they pick him off? There are the bugs. Where's the Burrow Strike? Oh, Laguna, and then the Burrow just missing. But can he get away? He's not. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to. Malefice coming out. A couple more auto attacks. They finish the kill with the Malefice. Wonky little chase there, but oh boy. That was with the Weaver dodging quite a few spells there and still biting the dust in the end.
It was a nice effort from the Weaver, but unfortunately, everyone has just a little bit too much on IG at this point, I think.
It's like if you're playing basketball and you're just, you're dribbling all over the court, like the entire enemy, they're pressing you, they're trying to surround you. Sure, you're not giving up the ball, but you're not scoring either, and that's what's happening with that Weaver right there. Yikes.
It's the effort that counts, man. We'll give him an A+ for effort.
You don't want to run yourself too ragged. Remember, for MUFC, if they get 2-0'd here, there's a chance they don't move on in this tournament. So it's important for them to at least get one game. And right now, this game not looking too promising. Ferrari is going to pick up a gem. Looks like Shadow Demon dropped that. And now on the top lane, Leshrac getting picked off. Just race cars all over the field. Everybody blinking forward. Everybody chasing. And everybody picking up frags left, right, and center.
Now, speaking of race car, Lifestealer decided to go with an S&Y, so he really, really wants to be fast, which I totally understand, and I think that IG is going to take their 2 pickoffs right there and probably just try to push inside of the base. They are just unbelievably firing at this point, and zhou's going to have his BKB relatively soon. He's got level 2 Black Hole, and Ferrari, I think he actually has his Manta finished. Oh, no, he actually doesn't have it. He's deciding to get a Mithril Hammer after his Yasha, so he's not going full Manta.
Knowing Ferrari, it's probably the Desolator. You'd think maybe the BKB of this game, but there's Demonic Purge, there's Entangle, and they're winning by a lot. He's probably just going to go for that burst damage, get those quick blink meld kills. And MUFC, we could just see the Chen getting assassinated before he can even pop the Hand of God or the mech, and even if he does, can he really keep his team alive? I'm not convinced. Relic out on the bear, but it's late. Chuan comes in top, not able to catch him. He at least forces some TPs. That's really the only shot they have, is somehow split push this one out forever, but Sharky gets caught and he'll just melt.
That's unfortunate. He's pretty much doing the only thing that he can, which is force IG to go back, and he did. He forced a lot of heroes back, but unfortunately it cost him his life, and while the rest of his team's able to farm in lanes for maybe a wave or 2, ultimately IG is just going to be back at their front door in the next minute, and I'm not really sure if... I mean, inside of the base is obviously the best chance they have to win.
Right.
But where is their damage going to come from? YYF has basically 2,000 HP without his armlet even on, and he alone is worrisome enough for him.
And the worst part is they're up against the Chen, and so he can infest one of those big creeps and basically have a free fountain trip in the middle of the team fight, if he's lucky and if he finds that opening. It's real trouble. And the other thing we may see is the big infest bomb, with him infesting either Ferrari or Chuan or zhou. Hell, any of these 3. IG has so many ways to initiate. That's the other problem in this position, is any one of these heroes can go in first, aside from the Enigma. Zhou's going to look for the better opening, but Chuan doesn't even really need to hit the epicenter. Just needs to hit a 2-3 hero burrow strike, and that pretty much wins them the team fight.
That is pretty much the unfortunate truth that MUFC are going to be facing right now.
Here comes the justice. Here comes the side blades, the pain. Ferrari, for ire, he screams as he kills off that bear. And the other thing, the minus armor for the bear, just at this point in the game, it just melts. Here comes the infest bomb. Oh boy. Oh boy. Ferrari, are you going to do it? Here it goes. Onto the lone druid, they're focusing. Nice demonic purge. On the crypt here, the lifestealer while he's raged. Doesn't matter though. They focus him down. Black hole from zhou is canceled very quickly. It doesn't, it's like a 2 or 3 second black hole, and that's all she wrote.
Well, this is what happens when you have a gigantic lead at this point in the game. I mean, it's only 24 minutes in. Ohio's going to be dying to YYF right outside the well. And the Golden Experience lead are upwards of 20,000 at this point. Even with a buyback, I'm not so sure they can stop this.
That's Dota, says Draskyl.
That's all, folks.
Yeah, and IG are pretty much at this point just awaiting the GG. Even if the Lone Druid gets a Radiance, the Bear's still just going to melt. It's way too underfarmed, actually. He really needed to have an Assault Cuirass at this point in the game. And one thing maybe he could have done is gone for that Maelstrom and then go straight for Assault Cuirass. You could have maybe have a Plate Mail out by now. I don't think it really would have mattered, though. It really goes back to the movement of those supports in the laning stage. And even, you know, the pseudo mind games with showing 3 heroes top and then immediately smoking to the bottom lane looking to kill that Lone Druid.
That's really, really nice movement and nice defensive disruption attempt here, but I don't think you're going to be able to disable the Shrek from imminent doom.
Chuan goes in, he's looking to pick up some kills, and, well, he'll get one, at the cost of his own life at least. They're fighting under the tier 4. This could be trouble for IG and Ferrari looking to run away. They still haven't taken Rex. It should be pointed out. They probably could have, but they really want these kills, and the defensive disruption's proving to be a total nuisance. Look at the chops, Lacuna Blade! Faith says, okay, nobody else wants the kill, I guess I'll take it. And he will take it.
And xfreedom is just scurrying all over the place, trying to stop YYF, but he's just a tank. Like, he is a actual tank, not even just metaphorically.
Yeah, this is a tank, and there's no barbed wire, there's no trenches. It's just a tank rolling over the grassy plains of, well, the world of Dota, and wreaking havoc on MUFC. They were not entrenched, they were not prepared for the aggression, and they tap out. It's a quick GG.
Not really too surprised. They fought it out until the end, so high five to MUFC for sticking it out, trying to see what they could make happen. But the one thing I wanted to point out for this game is that MUFC didn't have a bad game plan. Like, looking at their picks and the way that they had things in their head, it actually seemed like a pretty good idea. Because of the fact that Enigma was long lane, obviously you're going to have your Lone Druid versus that. Lone Druid does okay in that matchup. It's not really one way or the other too badly. And then you have a dual lane mid against Ferrari to shut him down. Great. That's like a really good idea against IG, except not really thinking about the fact that the dual roam coming out from Chuan and Faith was just going to completely ruin the game for MUFC. I mean, that's really all it was. Being able to sit in your lane and farm is great, but it's the supports that made that happen this game.
Yeah, absolutely. This was the Faith and Chuan show. Make no mistake about it. The early movement, so efficient, really reminds you of LGD International's double jungle movements. And even when LGD International offensive tri lanes, they often do the same thing. IG, their tri-lanes have been very impressive. This game, we didn't really see a tri-lane, but we saw the core components of a tri-lane, which are the two supports, doing the same thing at a different kind of strategy. IG shows their versatility. Zhou playing the Enigma, having a big impact, 3-1-16. The highest deaths total was 2 on the TA, and that was the Ferrari TA, who got dual lane mid, who was playing a little bit aggressive this game, and wow, MUFC just gets steamrolled in game 1. This cannot be good for your morale going into game 2.
Definitely not, but MUFC is an experienced team. At the very least, 4 of them are, and at the very least, they should be able to get into the next game without thinking too much of it. And when you look at a game like this, you could say, okay, our plan wasn't too bad. We got caught out by roaming, and it kind of picked us apart. We had to commit supports to stopping them from killing our lone druid, save our early game towers. And when we got split thin like that, they were able to use their double carry and YYF's Lifestealer and Ferrari's Templar Assassin. Like you said, even zhou did a pretty spectacular job of keeping his farm up, and he was actually the second highest farmer of IG in that game. And we just kind of got out-farmed, more efficiency, kills everywhere, and it just was, it was molten death, essentially.
Molten death, wow. Yeah, they're a very deep team, and it's a hard matchup. MUFC, they really want to take one game, no matter what. Even if they lose the series, they take one game, they're guaranteed third place at least. I don't know if they have a shot at second. I think it depends on how the other match goes later today. But if they don't win one game, there is a chance, if Vici Gaming 2-0 Tongfu, that we would have a 3-way tie for last place in this group. And I think we go to tiebreakers then, because it would be a true 3-way tie where each team, one team's beaten one of the other 3, and so there's nobody who has that real edge when it comes to the head-to-head matchups. And I think tiebreaker matches would happen then for MUFC. They don't want to leave that up to chance, but against IG, it's going to be hard not to. Anyway, I'm LD, he's Draskyl. We're casting this for Beyond the Summit. You're watching the G League Season 2. Game 2 of IG versus MUFC coming up soon. Stay tuned for that. Enjoy the highlights in the meantime.